Thank you for joining us for another Nagoya Players interview. Today, we're joined by two veterans of the stage. We have one of Nagoya's best performers, Michael Kruse, with us, and we have up-and-coming star Emily Bailey. Today, they're here to help us learn about the Edward Albee Showcase and talk about the show they're working on. Michael and Emily are performing a two-person show called Counting the Ways. And Emily, Michael, let's say hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Okay.
I'm Emily.
So what I wanted to talk about today was Edward Albee and specifically the show you're working on. So first, I'd like to hear, what do you think about working on an Albee show? It's a little bit different from traditional theater. And Albee's also presenting these stories in the frame of an American context. Neither of you happen to be Americans. So what are your thoughts on Albee and the issues he's presenting? Do you find them relatable to your own backgrounds and where you're from? So Michael, maybe you can start.
Okay, just a point of correction. I'm not one of Nagoya Players' best players. I'm one of their oldest. That's all. Not the same. Okay. As far as Edward Albee. Now, I actually was not familiar with Edward Albee. Of course, he's very famous. I knew his name. And I've often thought I must go and see Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf one day, but I've actually never had a chance to watch it. So reading the scripts was very interesting for me. Now, I must say that my first impression was, oh. But as we've gone over them again and again in rehearsal, I've realized they're really deep. There's so much going on there. And I think there's a major challenge for us as actors because the audience will only have one chance to watch it. So we've got to bring that all to the stage and show them on. I actually think they're incredibly funny and really, really, really clever. So I'm very, very impressed. His writing is extremely concise. I mean, he says an awful lot with very little. So I think there's a lot going on. So far, I'm really, really enjoying the discovery, in fact.
Okay, great. Emily, what do you think about Albee and his writing and his scripts?
I guess it is kind of different from a lot of other styles where they just tell the story straightforward. Albee kind of plays with reality a little bit. It reminds me of reading books by Murakami Haruki, and you read it for a while and you think, wait, what is this? This doesn't make sense. And then you realize it's not meant to make sense, and it's a lot easier. But I think behind the quirkiness, there is a lot of meaning. So it's not just strange for the sake of strange. It's strange, but it does actually say something. And so it can be appreciated on both levels.
Yeah, I
and
think
you asked about the American context. Sorry?
Yeah, I was just going to say the comparison to Murakami was a very interesting one. I didn't think about it, but there's some comparison to be made there. But you were going to say about the American context.
Yeah, you asked about that. I think there are cultural references and references specific to the States and also to the time period in which it was written. And I think you get more out of it if you have that sort of background. But at the same time, he's also writing about people and social issues. So I think they are very not limited to the United States. Like, say, for example, the plays that we're doing, they have themes about treatment of the elderly and the roles of the elderly in society, or about loveless marriages. And I'm like, say, in Japan, I can see those things being very topical here as well. So I wouldn't say at all that it's limited to the States.
Yeah, and that's a reason I really like these scripts to be performed in Japan, because I think those universal elements are shared between cultures. We're viewing it through an American lens, but I think we can apply it to life in Japan as well. Yes.
Yeah. I was going to say, I don't think it's a loveless marriage. I don't think that's wrong. It's not a loveless marriage. It's a very normal marriage, which means it started out in the beginning with probably passion and excitement and everything. And now they've reached a stage where that's gone and they're kind of getting used to it or learning to adjust to it. But that doesn't mean it's loveless. There's being in love and there's love. They're quite different. And I think a lot of, not just Japanese marriages, I'm not American, but it's very relatable to me. I mean, I'm not married either. But I mean, I've seen lots of marriages. I know my parents' marriage, and I've had lots of relationships. But I can see clearly what he's saying here. I think there are lots of things. There's also other things too, like the distant is still quite distant but the approach of death. There's
Mm.
well, we're going to die one day, and because you do at some point begin to think about these things. So I think I do think it's very relatable. I don't have any problem with that at all, and that's one of the things I'm enjoying. If I can be a little bit rude, I think I'm a bit older than them. Sorry, I'm a lot older than Emily. And I really enjoy things in this play because I think the character I play is not actually as old as I am. I would imagine he's kind of in his 50s. I'm actually in my 60s, but I can really feel this is an older man who's been through it, gone through it, and had all this excitement and adventures, and he's trying to deal with life's changes. And actually, I think the woman is younger, but she too is experiencing changes in the relationship, and is also, dealing with them. And I think that's very, very relatable.
Yeah, I think the life changes that people have just from growing older, and also the changes that you have in a relationship that's been there for a long time, they're kind of working side by side in the play.
Yeah. Those are very interesting, the way you reframed that for us, Michael, about loveless or not loveless. But to kind of formally introduce the show we're working on, the name of the show is Counting the Ways. Michael plays the husband and Emily plays the wife. And kind of the central theme of the play is love. What is love? What does it mean to love? And more precisely, the show really tackles the idea of falling out of love. And how does that affect a relationship? So let's talk about Counting the Ways. Let's talk about your characters in detail. So the name of Emily's character is she. Michael's character is he. Albee's very creative this way. Emily, who is she? Tell us about your character.
Well, we were just talking about the ages. She's a woman. She seems to be in like her late 40s. She's been married for a while. And I think she can sense in herself changes from the way that she was younger and the way that she relates to her husband compared to when she was younger. And it's interesting, like she wants reassurance that she is loved by him, but at the same time, she seems to be the one who is most in tune to how they're kind of falling out of love. And the question is kind of raised, like in the changes that happen in their relationship. Is it like a qualitative or a quantitative change? Like, do they love each other less than they did before? Or is it more like that the kind of emotions and the feelings and relationship between each other has just changed in its nature? I think she's also processing that and how it relates to him as well and how much he gets about that.
Okay. All right. Great. Thank you, Emily. And Michael, tell us about he. Who is he?
Okay. So he, I think, is probably late middle age. As Emily said, they've been married a long time, and they're, as you said, falling out of love, but which means then it's no longer exciting. But I think they've still got a deep attachment, in fact, maybe a deeper one. But it's interesting because, as Emily said, the woman's very sensitive to these changes. The man actually doesn't seem to have a clue about these things. So his wife keeps saying, "Do you love me?" He said, "What is all this?" He's completely taken by surprise. Typical man, I might say. And at the same time, he's a bit pretentious. Well carved, Dawn. He's a bit pretentious. He likes quoting famous poets and things, and he makes jokes. And he says, "Oh, did you see what a great joke I made there?" But he's also concerned with very serious issues like impending death. It's not him, but he talks about it. How do we prepare for it, and should we prepare for it, and for each other's death and stuff. So it's he's a very, there's a lot going on. I think there's a lot going on in his mind. He's thinking deeply about things, but he's only aware that the relationship is in trouble because of things that his wife brings to his attention. So there's one hilarious moment. I don't know if this is a spoiler, but there's a hilarious moment when he discovers that they're no longer sharing a bed.
Yes.
2 beds, and he discovers it. And what's happened? And his wife talks about it and say, "Well, of course it's like that. I mean, this is what always happens." What? I mean, so that's almost symbolic of the way in which he's kind of plowing on clueless, really, to the changes that are happening, although they affect them both deeply.
Yeah, Yeah, I don't want to spoil that scene for people because the way you guys have been performing it is very funny, and I want audiences to experience it firsthand. So the whole bedroom scene in beds, but yeah, come to the show and see that happen. So counting the ways, I think it's a fascinating script. We It's been a while since we've done a show that just kind of explores relationships and relationships between two individuals. And love is a very tricky topic, especially in Japan. The Western view of love and the Japanese view of love often don't cross over at certain points. So I think, but this play, I think it shows us that cross point of how Westerners and Japanese can view love. What do you guys think about that? Do you think this story of love is applicable to Japan?
Emily, do you want to say something?
Well, yeah, just even on the idea of love. I mean, if you look at the Japanese translation, when the question is asked, "Do you love me?" in the Japanese, they just say something like "Watashi no koto suki." It's like they don't even use as strong of a word to describe it.
Yeah, they don't actually use the word love, right? So that's very interesting.
I think the dynamics in the relationships are explored, like whether it's a relationship between people who love each other and have some passion, or if it's more just, oh, these two people care about each other and, you know, they help each other out, and there's the more convenience side of things. I do think you can see a bit of both in each society. And it does vary from relationship to relationship, but, you know, they do say in Japan there is, and a lot of East Asian countries as well, there's more of a, you know, reserved, less openly emotional image there.
Okay, Michael, how about you? I'm sure you've been in love once or twice while in Japan.
Oh, possibly, yes. That's to sleep. That's the story. Yeah, I don't quite agree with what Emily said there. I think the first thing about the touch of ski disco, I don't think that matters. That's just the way Japanese people express it. But what I think, frankly, this is what happens to any marriage. I think anywhere in the world, I think this must happen. You've been married a long time. It's going to change. And the changes be that you become more familiar, and familiarity breeds contempt. I don't mean real contempt, but I mean, the expression familiarity breeds contempt. It's going to make the relationship less thrilling and exciting, and that's natural, and you have to deal with that. I think one important difference, of course, is that a lot of Japanese marriages begin with omiai, so they maybe don't have quite the same giddy excitement in the first months that some Western marriages do. But then maybe the come down isn't as bad later, so maybe why they don't divorce as much. And on the other hand, something else that's interesting, of course, is although the divorce rate in Japan is low, they have the highest rate of divorce in the world for retired people, which is completely with ours. Now, our play doesn't get to that stage. We don't get to the stage where we're retiring. They're not that old at all, right? They're kind of mid-late. I mean, the girls, I think, at the beginning of mid-80s, and the guys a bit older. But that would be something interesting to explore, because I think that's a difference. But we don't get to that stage in the play. I think what we see in the play is what is almost certainly universal, which is that inevitably the relationship changes with the years and it becomes cooler, but in some ways more of a bond. Yeah,
I think that last statement, cooler, but the bond is stronger. I think that's a really good way to describe the relationship between he and she. But it's coming to that point, coming to that realization that we're going to explore in the play. So the play is coming up soon. It's going to be April 15, 16 at Sasashima Studio near Nagoya Station. So for the audience that, they may not be familiar with Albee, maybe some people heard Albee's a bit challenging. What do you want to say to the audience? What do you want to tell them about the show? Emily?
Well, from what I've seen of the rehearsals so far, I think it's a very fun show. It's thought-provoking. It's also just interesting. And it's good to see something that's maybe a slightly different style to what you normally have even the theater, it's black box, so it's a different experience to what you might get at other shows. I think it would be really good to come and see, and hopefully people can see a little bit of themselves and the people around them in the shows.
All right, thank you, Emily. Michael, anything to say to the audience?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with Emily on that one. There's a lot to laugh at, actually. There's a lot of humor in these plays, which we're going to try and bring out. It's very, very funny indeed. And also, I do think that people will recognize all sorts of things. My absent-mindedness and things, and when Emily's character is agonizing over the relationship, and Michael's character is agonizing over where's my clothes today, you know, things like that. I think people will find those easy to relate to and very funny. And I'd also say Albee's language is not difficult. It's not like it's not difficult language, and it's not things being, there's only a couple of quite long speeches. Mostly it's quite short statements and very easy to understand. Where there is a challenge, it's what's not said, really, is where, and that's universal. I mean, it wouldn't matter whether you're a Japanese or British or American, you'd have the same difficulty with that. And actually, maybe Japanese people find that a bit easier, as they're very fond of communicating about speech. So let's see. I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, there's a whole lot of subtext in Albee, and actually, I think that's one of the fun parts of Albee is discovering the subtext and the things he left unsaid, but you're supposed to know what he's talking about. So I think these plays are a lot of fun, and I think Counting the Ways is Counting the Ways really makes me laugh, especially the way you two perform it together. I'm really excited to see it all in its final form, and I think it's going to be a very interesting story to tell in Japan, and I think there's a lot of relatability. So we'll wrap up the interview here. So thank you, Emily. Thank you, Michael, for joining us. We really look forward to your performance. For people interested in the show, tickets are available from Cast and Crew. You can also pick them up at The Rock or IPE Academy. And all the information is on our website, nagoyaplayers.org. Thank you for joining us for today's interview, and we hope to see you at the show. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.